Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome to In Depth. According to Dennis Sprangalang Hall of Blessed Mention, the Parang now start. So the season has been launched and we are going in depth on activities with Public Relations Officer of the National Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Joanne Briggs. Ms. Briggs, how are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, DK. I'm fine on this wonderful, Thursday. Yes, wonderful Tuesday before more Parang comes along. Yes, I'm fine.
Well, that's the thing. I hear the thing launch. So give us some information about what the launch was like and what's happening thus far.
All right. Okay. So last weekend, which would have been Saturday, October 15th, we officially launched Parang Season 2022. This year's theme is Paranda para siempre. For those who don't know Spanish very well, it means Parang forever. So that is where we started off. We started off with a mass at Santa Rosa RC Church with a procession, and then we ended up at the First People's Community Center in Arima. And the reason why we were there, because we were doing a partnership with them, because they had their own celebration. And we thought that would have been a great time to just, do two together, right? So that is where we were. People came out, bands came out, music was playing, people were dancing, people were eating pastel. It was a real good vibe last week, Saturday. And what we have done is we're not having competition this year. So taking that off the table one time. We're not having competition this year, but what we're doing is literally moving from house to house. So every 2 weeks, we will be at a different venue under like a house parang setting, like how people, the paranderos used to do it a long time, moving from house to house. And that is what we will be doing, moving from community to community, celebrating, the spirit of Christmas and, the art form.
Let us go back and talk about that a little bit. Well, even when I heard that there was also blessing of the instruments and the paranderos, but not having a competition. Some people might say that is a good thing. And competition sometimes can stifle the culture in certain ways. What was the thought process behind saying, okay, we're not doing a competition this year, we're literally moving from house to house and community to community?
Well, no competition this year. I think the decision was simple because you need to have funding. You have to have finance in order to produce competitions like that, because in addition to looking for venues, because they have to have venues that are big enough to accommodate people, they still have to pay fire, they still have to pay police, they still have to get a bar license, all those things, right? And you still have to find money for production. Because when paranderos come out, when we have our competitions, they are always, of the best. And if it is we cannot put our all into something because we don't have the finances, we just want to make do with what we have, right? And just continue, because even without the competition, there will always be parang. And that is why we decided we were going to continue with the festival, right? Because we have to remind the people that, parang is not dead. Parang is alive and well and moving along, because that is part of the tradition of Christmas. You talk about if it is that competition stifles creativity. I believe that it also generates creativity more or less, because we are in a position where we have to create our own music, our own lyrics. So you find that we have been producing great songs over the years as a result of competition. And what we have done, what I've noticed though, is that some bands, even outside the realm of competition, that they still put pen to paper to create new music. So that is how the parang will continue to live on, is because we're moving on from the tradition, even though we're not leaving it behind, that we are getting more brave to write our own music. So our next generation of paranderos will sing it.
And I like the fact that you only give me things to follow up on. So I think in my questions. But the theme Parang Forever, the fact that even though there's not competition, Parang will live on. Answer the person who says, but I'm not really hearing. Is it because they're not looking in the correct places? Talk to that person.
Okay, so for those who are social media savvy, a lot of our messaging and stuff has been on our social media platforms. That's on Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, right? What this has happened as a result of the pandemic, because in the past 2 years, we were not outside communicating with the community. So that became our connector with all paranderos, trying to figure out what it is going on, how we play music, how we get in the music, if anybody wants to hear us, where they could find us, and all the other paranderos. So that was our platform for the past 2 years. And for this year, we continue on that platform because we realize that a lot of people, regardless of age, because I'm sure there are, people over a certain age are probably more tech savvy than I am, right? So they will follow Facebook and they say, hey, I see the Parang Association having something, and then next thing you know, by word of mouth, that is how people find out. We have been putting up media releases as well. So as soon as there's an update on something, we also rely on the traditional media so that people will know what else is happening for this season. So that is how we are communicating with everybody.
But in terms of that, some people being a little more tech savvy than others, what does that do for the individuals who are less tech savvy, possibly as a group? Because sometimes they say for you to get a certain tone to sing, you have to be seasoning it with certain elements that you don't necessarily find in them 11 herbs and spices.
Yes, I know.
By the same token, that focus may not necessarily be on the technology.
Yeah.
So is NPAT actually saying, okay, well, we are highlighting you rather than you having to highlight yourself, or is it bands doing it by themselves?
I think it's a mixture of both. For example, for this year, for Parang History Month, which started in September, which is like a precursor to getting the hype for the Parang season coming up. What we did is we featured a lot of the paranderos who contributed to the art form. This year it was about paranderas, the women in Parang. So you'll find that we featured people like Daisy Boise, Gloria Alcazar, names that people are familiar with. And that people would say, yeah, this is more than 11 herbs and spices we're talking about here, right? And then you come to the next generation, you have Francesca Allard, you have Jennifer McPherson, you have Claire Piper. So we were focusing on both, highlighting them. So at least people are aware of who these contributors to the art form are, right? So that is what we were doing on our social. So we make it kind of, interactive, and the response that we received on those posts was like phenomenal. We were like in awe of the amount of people who were saying that were engaged, who enjoyed, the little background on Daisy or on Gloria, and how she wrote this song about Claire and how people didn't know that Claire used to sing with San Jose before she ended up with, Santa Rosa Paranderos, right? And those kind of things that those little snippets people didn't know about. So that is one thing that we were able to do. And then you have the parabands who are independent in thought and probably thinking along the same lines as we do, but doing their own stuff. And you were producing their own, introducing themselves to a new audience. So at least people knew who they were. And and we also shared their stories as well on our platform. So it was just like a cohesive thing that we tried to, use what we have in order to get the message out.
And in terms of that message, we're actually going to take a short break. We return to the conversation. Stay with us. There's so much more to come. Welcome back. We are talking about the Parang season. We're doing so with the Parang Association, the National Parang Association, PRO, Joanne Briggs. And I really like the point that we took the break on in terms of saying, okay, well, you may know someone in this light or you may not know someone in this light, because I can imagine with Ms. McPherson and Dr. Allard, people just know them as Miss. As opposed to saying, okay, well, this is another realm that they occupy space in, that they've even kind of carved their own spaces. Because I remember at one point in time, well, I remember talk of like when that synthesizing machine was being used by Dynamicos, and purists were saying, what that? Outside with that. and then now it's a lot more normal or accepted rather.
Yes.
But
Yes.
and looking at those changes, looking at advancements, a little while earlier, you spoke about being braver, putting pen to paper and saying we are creating our music or creating more content. What does the future of Parang look like to you?
I think it's positive, and it's beyond just us, those who are in the space right now, like myself, Alicia, other singers who are there right now, or other composers. I think we can carry it along for the next generation to follow. And I say this because after we have said, okay, we pass it on the mantle, we know there's a next generation of paradigms behind us, right? For example, the junior competitions that we have every year, and you see these schools coming up to perform and making sure that they sing their songs to their heart, right? With their heart and all their passion on stage. And you're hearing them rolling their R's and you're making sure they shake their maracas and stuff. You're seeing that spirit of Parang in them. So we know that even if not all of them, we know a group of them will come up the ranks and say, okay, yeah, let's form an old band. Yeah, let's play some Parang. And that's how it will move on because we know our next generation is behind us. So I am looking at it from a positive way. I know there are people out there who consider that thinking that Parang is not what it used to be before because they're hearing so many fusions because you're talking about the synthesizer, for example. And the thing about it is with culture and music, it never stays still, right? So there will always be that transitioning of styles. But one thing is for sure is that we recognize the foundation. We are not moving away from it, right? There are groups and there are singers who would maintain that foundation element. And of course, there would always be other groups and other singers who would try to experiment. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So it's just a question of how do we make sure that everybody, including the fusions, including the traditionals, how do we move forward and get that, carry it to the next level? And it goes back to the next generation who are right behind us and ready and raring to sing and play, of course.
And in addition to that younger generation, and I want to get back to them in just a bit. I'm very happy to speak to you because I know that you're a culture lady, looking at it both in the trenches as well as academically in the trenches as well. Do you see any shifts in culture as it relates to Parang with influences from the Southern American mainland?
Well, yeah, you've noticed it for a while. I've noticed it for a while that people would assume that when you sing merengue or you put a parang beat it is merengue, like it is parang, sorry, right? And I'm seeing those fusions, but I think it's a question of understanding and research. Some bands do that, so they are aware of the type of styles that they sing, right? I mean, I give this story like when my band was Paranderos, we joined the circuit, right? We have so many look on our on our faces and everything, and we go in there and we these hardened Paranderos, and they're looking at us and they say, you know what a para blackness? You know how to end a parang too? And they grill us like, okay, if it was all they don't know that, or they don't know anything about para. And the thing about it is I use that to say that we learned from it. We did our research, we understood it, so we understood exactly what they were talking about. What is a horopo, what is a gaita, those, learn different rhythms, learn different styles of writing, or, not really writing, but how a song is structured, for a nacimiento or an iniciación that is totally different, right? So we learn those things, and I am hoping, in the observations that I've made, that I'm hoping that people who try to use those fusions or adapt Latin songs to fit it in the Trinidad space, because we have done it before. Gloria has done it. That's what Gloria Alcazar did, right? With San Jose Serenaders. The folk songs from Venezuela came across to us, right? So El Gavilan, Guanaguanare, Sabañangue, folk songs, right? From Venezuela that she brought back. But she put it in a gaita parang style that made it sound very much like us, right? So, but what I'm saying is that people here would understand it and research it, and they would understand, the foundation of it, right? And appreciate it for what it is. So I'm hoping that the next group of Paranderos musicians also do take their time to do the research. If it is talk to an elder, talk to somebody in a band and find out, hey, what does that song mean, right? Because a lot of us don't understand the language as well as, if it is we speaking English, right? And that's okay. But if it is that we can have that understanding in what we sing, then we'll know exactly how to move forward, even in the way, if it is we find the roots of the song, like if it comes from Puerto Rico, what does that song mean? Is it anything like our Christmas in Trinidad? Those kind of questions that you should be thinking about, looking at the roots and roots, if you get my meaning, ROOTS and ROUTS, right? So the foundation and how it travels, then you will understand exactly how the music is. So coming from that academic space, I understand how it moves. But the question outside of that academic thought and thinking as a parandera, I would like to hope that, my fellow compares, for want of a better term, would compile, that's the word. My fellow compiles will, also try and understand the language, understand the meanings of some of these songs, so they'll know exactly how to adapt it. Or if it is they want to do it merengue style, that is their thing. At the same time, it's all about questioning of research. That's it, but that's what it boils down to, research.
And you say that and you talk about those roots, and you remind me of me liking to ask people, where is your accent from? As opposed to asking, where are you from? Because that gives so much more of a complete picture of who you are and where you've been. But once people not looking back, I ain't calling no names, but once people not looking back and start to say, okay, well, they're going and sing Aginaldo. But but we have about 2 minutes more. Let us know about this the concert that is coming up, and whatever else you would like to share in closing. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So we're going to have a big concert coming up on the 25th of November called Divas of Parang, where we highlight or introduce the women of Parang, kind of like connecting to what we were talking about earlier about who are the women in Parang. This time we are presenting the Paranderas of the present, and they are going to be presenting some of their original work, which means by themselves or with the band, because some bands have their original work. We talked about that already, talking about lyrics and stuff. So they will be performing some of their band's original work. They will be singing it, as well as a song of choice. I think it's 2 songs, if I'm not mistaken. They will be backed up by the Orquesta Nacional de Trinidad and Tobago, and that is something we will have to talk about at another time, which is the National Parang Orchestra of Trinidad and Tobago. We actually have a band that has strings, just like a regular orchestra, like with strings, with what else there is? Quattro, guitar, everything that you can think of, but in an orchestra chamber style. That is what we have as well, and they will be backed up by it. And it's going to be taking place at Central Bank Auditorium, as I said, and it's going to be a wonderful night. Once it's a glab, because it's coming out like divas, it's more than just wearing the parang, the peasant blouse, and it's going to be like, yeah, we're coming on stage, we are going to be in the spotlight, and we are going to sing for everybody to enjoy.
Definitely looking forward to it, and we want to thank you so much, Ms. Briggs, PRO of the National Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And we're looking forward to more. And if you didn't talk about it, I say that sometime we need to talk about the orchestra, because even looking at the fact that you have these leads from different groupings and different how it is they come together and what is that energy like, it is something to talk about.
And I think, yes, it's something to talk about and it's something to see, because when they come together, it is a wow, mind-blowing.
All right, but thank you once more. And on behalf of the entire team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.